Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 8th, 2025 Planning Board meeting. I'd like to start with the pledge, please. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Just some basic announcements. The emergency exits are to your left and right out of the room. The restrooms are out the back and to the left. If you haven't yet, please sign the attendance sheet on the back table, where there's also business cards with email address, phone numbers for the planning department, should you need them. Also on the back table are copies of any resolutions that we will be reading tonight, along with the agenda. Please silence your cell phones so you don't interrupt those who are presenting or speaking before the board. And any conversations you may wish to have amongst yourselves, please take them out into the hallway and close the doors, again, so you don't disrupt the meeting. Thank you. We have a couple items on the agenda tonight, Stewart Tree Service site plan and the Norbut Solar Farm. All the other ones that had been on the agenda preliminarily have been located to a future meeting. So, meeting minutes, we have one. If everyone has had a chance to review them. Any questions for Lisa or comments, changes? Pat, Joe? And I'll entertain a motion to approve the 6/25/2025 meeting minutes.
I'll move.
Al moves
I'll second.
and Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried 4-0. We have correspondence from James Gray regarding the Norbut Solar Farm. Should be in your packet. Board committees updates. Is Drew here? Don't see him. Okay, so nothing from the town board this evening. Keith Maynard is here, however, for the update for the next meeting. And Keith, thank you again for the project updates. So,
Yeah, no problem. Lisa did most of that. Your next meeting is July 22nd at 7 p.m. TRIA will be back on that agenda. Other than that, there's no new agenda items. It's just carryovers from the recent agendas. But I did want, hopefully you all got the update that Lisa put together for projects. Did you guys have any questions?
No, but it's very, very helpful because, again, as we were saying, some of these things get approved and a lot of time passes and you don't see any progress, but this helps kind of catch us up, so I appreciate
Good. Yeah, and it's not, I mean, we also ship it to the town board, and then Susie, I think you also have this on the town's website as well. So yeah, it's good for everybody. Remember when this happened, where is it now? So.
yeah,
right, if you guys
Lisa's
don't have
very diligent. She got all kinds of good bullet points on each one of these things, so we kind of got some good information.
We try to be very consistent.
Yep, I very much appreciate it.
No problem.
Helps us keep track of things. Thanks, Keith.
Yep.
Okay, as I said, there's two items on the agenda. Both are still open public hearings. First one, Stewart Tree Service site plan. The owner's Richard Stewart. Applicants requesting approval to operate tree service business at the site as a previously, I think, Food at Fisher's Station. So, good evening.
Hello.
What can I do for you?
Well, name and address, and just tell us what you're looking to do.
My name is Richard Stewart. The address of the project, is that what you want?
Usually it's the applicant's address, so.
Oh, my
Yeah.
address, 7548 Main Street is, in Fishers is the address of the property that we're talking about.
Mhm.
And well, I don't have a home, but my address is 1363 Calkins Road in Pittsford, New York.
Okay. So if you can give us some orientation as to what you would like to do at the site. I know that you have
Well,
organized things there, and
I guess I mean, somebody said that here, the area variance is granted. They wanted me, do you have a picture of this?
Mm-hmm.
This,
do you have the site plan, Susie?
this isn't the site plan, this is
Well,
a
the aerial.
aerial photo.
It's in this.
Well,
Yeah.
we've
go.
changed the way, like, this is a mess, but, you know, we've got more of an organized mess now. But I don't know are we allowed to put a container, like one of those shipping containers on the property? Do we need any approval for that?
It depends on how it's oriented and what,
Yeah, like in a back corner, we could, they said something about, some of the stuff that's on the property, we could stick a shipping container in there and put everything in there, but they're asking for fencing too, which is not a problem, but, on the site plan here, we plan to put some, landscaping in front of the building. Bushes, grass, grasses, bushes,
well,
whatever.
it's not, as long as it's not a storage area, right? I mean,
No,
it's going to be
not
just
in front of the
lawn and-
building.
Because you are kind of the visual entrance to that industrial park there.
Right,
And I think that's one of the big reasons is, first of all, keep everything contained on the site in a
right,
reasonable place. If you have materials like wood chips and stone and things like that that you're planning on keeping there, they should be contained, not in open piles.
okay.
I know Wes and I had a chat with this at the staff meeting a little bit too. I don't know if, Wes, you want to expand on that?
I guess I don't have any further comments right at this moment, but I'd be happy to listen to what the other planning board members have, and if there's something I can
Okay. All right.
chime in on, I will.
So how do you see, if you could explain your operations, where you, how many trucks do you use? How much do you keep there in storage versus, what's out every day?
We've got 5 or 6 trucks out every day. And then I've got a bucket truck in the back right corner that's for sale, but I can move it. And I've got another truck that I could scrap and get it out of there too. So, I could tighten it up pretty good.
Well, I guess the point is, from my perspective, is want to make sure that what you have there is what you're actively using, not what you're storing, and not, for instance, the truck, if it needs to be, if you're looking to get rid of it, you shouldn't be storing it there, I guess.
Okay,
It just takes up space more than what you have room for, I think, with the other trucks that you're actively using.
okay,
Make sense?
yes.
Okay. Let's go further into it. Joe, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't know if I've got enough information at this point to really move forward with anything. I see I'm looking at the site plan, but I'm not quite sure what all's involved with changing the use of the property, so I really can't comment.
Yeah. It's zoned light industrial. It has been a restaurant in the past, and he wants to use it for a commercial business. Sad to describe this, but that he'll be actively, it's not like there's going to be people coming there and it's not a sales office, it's a work office. So,
No, I understand what's going on in general principle, but none of the specifics.
okay. Al, any questions?
Yeah, probably just more comment, but I do have a couple questions. I think it's, for practical purposes, been used for a couple years, probably, is your tree location, right? The Fisher
Yes.
Station Restaurant closed a while ago, and you've been
Yes.
utilizing it. And so obviously, I drive past it regularly, and I do certainly see that it looks haphazard, I guess, maybe to put it bluntly, right? The trucks and bucket equipment and chippers and everything are just kind of all over the place. So I think just having well-defined parking locations for everything, kind of keep things off the yard and keep it in the parking area, I think would be one general guidance. And the other thing is, I see you put some landscaping in front of the house, which is fine, but I don't necessarily see the house as really being that obtrusive, but maybe some evergreens on either side of the house to kind of shield your parking area from the Main Street Fishers.
Would
Landscaping.
someone recommended fencing? Is that,
Certainly that would be up to you, but I think, evergreen trees would be more of a natural look and serve the purpose of screening it.
okay?
I'm not
Like
opposed to a
like
fence.
arborvitaes, for example, that grow fast and are a natural screen.
Yeah,
Okay,
because as Joe said, that's kind of the entrance as you come off of 96 in the Main Street, Fishers, that's the one of the first things you see, not the first, but one of the first. And I think just adding some attractive landscaping to shield the parking area would be a nice
Okay.
advancement.
And also, I would think to add on Al's comment, you do need, I think you should have a scaled site plan, say, at least with the dimensions of the parking lot and showing how you intend to store materials and trucks, how they fit and are laid out. I know in the past that you've parked
Do you have
vehicles
this?
across the entrance, for instance, as a gate.
Do you
for
have
instance.
this, Scott?
I have that. I don't know if that's is that what this is up here on the, same as what's on the screen there?
Yeah.
So,
Those are trucks and trailers. But in the back right corner, I could put one of those storage containers, because I got a lot of loose stuff around, like, you know.
in order for us to approve a site plan, we actually need a site plan that shows all the things that you want to put there. So that would be a start, is if you would like to put a storage container. I don't know what, if the code allows for it, if you need a variance to put that sort of container in like a shed or a barn or something. Is that the
Okay,
same
Adam
thing?
would know that then, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can have code comment on that. I don't know if it's allowed, but we can have code definitely comment if you put it on the site plan
Okay.
reviewed.
So he had made a number of comments. I don't know, I assume you received them. So his comments are, site is currently out of compliance with most recent approved site plan. Gravel parking area exceeds what was previously approved. It looks like it's expanded towards the front. Width of the entry drive was approved for
Right.
24 feet.
I don't need to use that area, this area that he's talking about.
Yeah, well, I guess the point is, if it's an expanded gravel area, perhaps when you're doing your landscaping, you can reestablish the grass, make it look more, defined as a landscape feature rather than expanded driveway, because then people would tend to not use that as parking. Or conversely, if it was still there, they might tend to guys might continue to park their trucks and things where they shouldn't. Vehicles and equipment are currently parked and stored within the right-of-way at Fisher Station Road Drive. You shouldn't be doing, so that, we need to show
No,
that.
they're not parking any cars there anymore. This photo is, I mean,
I expect code enforcement was looking at the site fairly recently, at least, and making comments on that rather than just going by an aerial. An area variance was granted by zoning in 1999 to allow parking within the 80-foot setback from the right-of-way of Fisher Station Drive. I expect that was probably for your business, the restaurant,
Right.
rather than tree service. Site plan submitted by the applicant does not contain a seal and signature of professional engineer. Information provided in the site plan is inconsistent with the most recent approved site plan. So the most recent site plan was reviewed and approved by the planning board in 99. So again, it's not, I think you need to update the site plan with a more defined.
okay, so I need an engineer stamp on it?
I would suggest you have an engineer lay out where things will fit and showing the sizes, showing where fencing, showing landscaping. And that would, then he could stamp, or she could stamp the site plan to show that that's the intent. And that could go on file with the planning department and the town, which would give a basis for codes to, respond to if there was any variance from that.
Okay.
Scott, any questions, comments?
I think I agree with that. I think what we're looking at, I would qualify it as a sketch plan. I think it conveys, the general interest here and what the applicant would like to do in the future. But I think when I recall the town's regulations for site plan, it seems to me the town has a checklist. And on that checklist, there are various features that need to be shown on a plan. And I think a professionally prepared site plan along with a landscaping plan. I have to think if this individual's in the tree business, you probably know some landscapers, landscape architects that could assist you in presenting a landscaping plan to go along with the site plan. And I think that would give us something to work with. And then we would know what the site is going to look like upon completion and where things go and how they fit and what the overall impact is to the area where you're proposing to do business.
So essentially, it's site organization, visual screening of the storage areas and back, and an organized depiction of how the trucks would fit and where they would go for parking. And if you wanted to have the container, then show where that would go, and that would all be part of the site plan that we could then comment and approve, vote on for approval.
Okay.
Is there anything else I can elaborate or enlighten?
I think I need to get an engineer, right, and lay it out in a landscape design, and then get it stamped and come back, right?
I'm assuming that the engineer you hire will be working with you to meet the needs of your business,
Right,
and in terms of how things are going to be stored, laid out, what do you want to put there, all that kind of stuff.
okay,
All right, so that would give you the best opportunity to get exactly what you need for that site and show it in a way that we can then review and approve it.
okay. Now, with the sign, could I bring a sign permit at the same time too?
You can ask for approval of, to get an approval for
It
a
would
sign.
come, I would come in front of this board again?
It's part of your application.
Okay. All right,
So just show where you want to put it, make sure it's in, where, in a good spot. If you want to talk to code about, where's a good place to put it and how big and all that. Usually we like kind of ground signs with some low landscaping around them, so that, you don't want them up on a pole, up in the air. Look for similar signs, I guess, on
I
other
think
buildings.
he said 20 square feet and not higher than 2 feet off the ground, if
Yeah.
I remember correctly.
Okay, I guess that's consistent with what I was just thinking, so. But,
Yeah.
2 by 10 or 3 by 8 or
All
7.
right, so I'll try to be ready for the next meeting, right?
Yeah, you have to have materials submitted by a certain date in order for us to be able to have it ready for review at the meeting right after you've submitted it. So it may take you more than a week or two, in which case you might be on the next meeting, first meeting in August.
Okay,
So,
If you can get it to me by Wednesday of next week, I can put you on the end of July, but if you need more time, we can put you on the first meeting in August.
okay,
So just let me know
all right,
how you do.
thank you.
and clearly, if
All right.
you have any questions about anything we've just spoken about, or what you need to show, or you want your engineer to discuss that with the town, please call the planning department. They can help shed some more light on things that you might still have questions about. So,
Okay. All right,
Very
thank you.
helpful. You're welcome.
All right, have a great night.
Okay, Norbit Solar Farm is the next item. This is an open public hearing as well. Main Street Fishers, owners Fishers Hollow LLC. Applicants requesting approval to develop a 4.428 megawatt MWAC solar energy facility on 34.93 acres, consisting of forest and meadowlands. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm James Creedicos. I'm with BME Associates. Here with me again this evening is Victor Chacha from Norbit Solar Farms. They're the applicant and the owner of the property. We were here in front of you guys at your June 10th meeting, was the last time we were here, and then we were tabled on the June 23rd meeting. We're not looking for you guys to take any actions today, but we did want to provide some updates on a couple additional materials and things that have occurred in the last month, and then just see if you guys have any other requests for input, so we can provide that, and then hopefully move into doing seeker, site plan and stuff at the following meetings. So the first thing that happened after we met with you guys is we met with the fire marshal that same week, I believe on Thursday, right after the planning board meeting, we were in front of you. Mr. Graham and us, we discussed basically how the site's laid out and all the different fire service features, different access points, spacing of the panels, just to get him kind of a level of comfort, familiarity with it. We sent an email back to the town as well, and Mr. Graham, identifying all those, and then as well as a fire access exhibit, and make sure we got this here. That was the one with the blue and red lines all over it. Basically, what it kind of, the additional things that we're going to be doing for the fire department are adding some perimeter access gates. The fire marshal kind of explained the concern out here is mainly brush fires and being able to contain them. But then we kind of talked through how the fire department fights those, what sort of equipment they use, and in general, they use like ATV style equipments. So they're not looking for us to provide a aerial fire apparatus access road around the property. They just want to be able to get the fire apparatus vehicle into the site and then use ATVs and things to access the perimeters. So kind of the main key points of this are, we have 20 feet between all our panels and the perimeter fence interior of our site. All the panels themselves are spaced about 17 feet apart between the rows north-south, so you can get between all of them. And then we have a larger north-south corridor that I believe is over 20 feet wide. So there's a lot of access for ATVs to maneuver through the site. I mean, it's the same thing with us getting access for mowers. We also discussed about basically, with the vegetation removal is maintaining the perimeter areas where we need to clear for screening and stuff like that as a meadow area. Less obviously the areas that we're preserving for the residential buffers on the two sides, as well as the other areas up here where we're avoiding because some of the drainage fingers start to form there.
So James, sorry, before you go any further, the lime green areas that aren't covered by solar panels, are they generally mowed regularly on site or once a year or once a?
Couple
summer?
times a year.
Couple
I mean,
times,
we
yeah.
keep them short enough so they don't touch
Yeah.
the panels, but it's not like we're going out there every week. It's kind of an as-needed thing.
Yeah, okay, I just want to get an expectation as to what you would see during the year and how high things would grow, so they can
Probably
maintain
in
access.
the 12 to 24 inches, and then every once in a while it'll get whacked down and then
Yeah,
come back.
okay.
So after kind of going through all that with the fire marshal, he was satisfied with it and didn't have any other comments at this time. So obviously, if something else comes up, we can discuss it and address it. But I think once we explain we don't have batteries and then kind of just how the site is laid out and just the general access, he was more than comfortable with all the things on that. The other thing we did was provide this rendering just to help, give some context to the site and the context of the surrounding lands, the two, obviously, residential buffer areas. We left that unrendered just to kind of show what the existing condition is. Obviously, we've got the brush that we sent in some of those photos from the meeting a month ago. And then this is just the combination of the taller trees and brush that are over on that property line. Basically, all the lime green, that's everything that we're planning to brush hog, take all the trees out, and then maintain as meadow just for screening and shading purposes. And then up in the corner, this is the area where there's some drainage features and ditches up here. Obviously, we're not touching that. We're going to stay away from that. The other thing we provided at your guys' request was some visualizations of the POI, the point of interconnection on the road. So we took two visualizations, one from the east and the west, looking at the entrance. So this is on the west side of our project access. Our site access is right on the other side of this little fence here, right in the foreground of these larger green trees. These are in our property right along the right-of-way. These are going to come down just because we need to get them out of the way of the utility poles, proximity, hazard reasons like that. So if you wouldn't mind flipping to the proposed view from this. So this is effectively what you'll see from that same location. This is the existing utility pole in the right-of-way. This will be owned by utility where we basically tie into. And then coming up our drive, we're going to have a series of poles that are spaced about 50 feet apart. So from this angle, you can see the first two, and then there's another 4 that are further up the hill or the drive as we go there. But they're basically utility poles with the couple additional transformer buckets.
Just those two with transformers, or all 4 of them all the way up?
All 6 of them
All 6
typically
of them?
have some form of equipment on them, whether it's
Okay.
a meter, a bucket, but they're all kind of in this realm of scale and size. There's not like any that have crazy large equipment or different things.
Okay, I
There's
think I stepped on Joe. You were going to ask something?
How many poles will be up the drive?
6. There's 6 poles.
3 on
Usually,
each side?
just on the east side
Okay.
of this. Yeah.
And then actually, Any of the larger type poles going to be on Main Street Fishers, or will they just make the connection to the existing plant?
I'm not sure what the improvements would be along the right-of-way if they're going to run additional lines. I mean, in general, this location is selected based on the ability to tie into the grid with minimal excess work, just from a cost standpoint. We don't want to run new lines in that. The last couple poles, so this is going to be owned by the utility company. We're not going to own this. And then the utility company also owns typically the first 2 poles here. They put their metering equipment in their last transformer, and then the next 4 poles up are owned by the customer.
Okay.
So I believe RG&E in this case would be maintaining those.
So will they own the transformers on those 2 poles that they own, or is that still your Norbert's equipment?
It'll be I believe the last equipment on the last 2 poles ends up being them. They spec it and utilize that. But it's
RG&E.
consistent with
Okay.
everything else that we're doing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So like I said, we took down those kind of 2 trees here, and then the other trees moving up, we'll trim back, based more or less to the right of way. There's obviously some vegetation from there. So it looks like any other utility poles running up, nothing crazy, nothing different. If you wouldn't mind going to the other view, so this is looking to the northwest. So again, our site is in front of this little fence here. And then the lighter colored trees, these are the ones on our property. There's 1, 2 here in this photo. And then this darker green, this is actually a larger tree that sits in the adjacent neighbor's property. So you'll see this tree is going to remain as you go to the next view. So same idea from this location. You're going to see the utility pole in the right of way, as well as what you'll be able to see of the poles or equipments through that tree. Obviously, if you go right to the drive and look up the drive, directly up it, you're going to see it, but this is kind of gives you the context of what you'll see as you're driving by. So it's minimal views at this, nothing that's going to seem way out of context. And again, you're not going to see any of the solar panels effectively at all from any of the adjacent streets. So basically, you're going to just see those. Any questions on either of those?
On visual location number 2, looking northwest, bunch of dead trees, those old ash trees that are sitting there that are without the leaves, or are they just?
Yeah, and these aren't on our property. 'Cause we have.
They're not on yours?
No, that fence actually right here encroaches a little bit into our property because we only have about a 50-foot flag lot effectively before it opens up.
So asking you to do some landscaping on somebody else's property probably wouldn't fly,
No,
right?
we're going to actually comply with the code comments though and relocate their fence inside their property because that's one of the comments Adam gave to us a while ago. So we're basically using the existing drive that's there. We're going to, improve it to be able to be a true 20-foot wide drive for fire trucks as well as access into our site. Kind of manipulate the drainage swales, obviously, that are effectively there on both sides. And then on the east side, have our series of overhead utility poles. And then once we get to our poles, after the 6th one, we go underground, and then that runs up to the inverter and transformer pads up in the site.
Is it a paved driveway when you're done? Asphalt?
No, we usually use a gravel.
Okay.
Yeah, we use a thicker section. I mean, it supports tractor trailers because that's what the panels come in. So it's H20 loaded typically, and we can provide documentation on that from a geotech if we need to.
So you'll see a gravel drive right down to the shoulder of the road?
Correct, yep. Yeah, right here, this will basically be a gravel connection. It's broken gravel and asphalt currently, so it'll just look effectively the same. It'll look a little wider than that because I believe it's only like 10 or 12 feet right now.
Okay. Any other questions for James on this?
Yeah, just one question. Is it possible to bury those power lines along the whole drive and not go aerial?
For this site, unfortunately, I don't believe so, because we're limited in our width of what we can do. The ground-mounted transformer equipment, I believe, won't fit within that confines. And if we did, then you'd be looking at a big, basically a metal building effectively there, which I think would be a little bit more of a visual impact for you. Victor, do you know the rough size of some of those ground-mounted POI?
We've never actually seen one.
Yeah, but it came up, I think, I want to say it came up on our project out in Shodak, New York, and we looked at it with a different person from his company, and that was kind of the general idea, was it becomes more of a building structure with all the equipment and transformers on the ground level.
So the lines like extrapolating again on Al's comment, the lines at the road, which we're looking in the left side of that photo, could they be run just on poles all the way up until you get into the site when you can then put transformers, or are you trying to get down underground as soon as possible?
So the utility has requirements for how far their poles can be away from the right-of-way. So
Okay.
they dictate that we basically have to be, I believe, 50-foot spacing for these first ones. We can go down to a tighter spacing with our poles, I believe of 30 feet, once we get past the first two. But that's just going to condense more of the poles closer to the road, where if we space them to 50, which is kind of our typical, they're going to get further up the hill and hidden behind the vegetation a little bit more.
I guess my question was more, can we just get the transformers away from the road?
No,
By-
that unfortunately,
Supplied by our
Yeah,
engineer.
okay, yeah, that's.
yeah.
you-
Yeah,
That way.
they won't let us, so they have their 50-foot requirement, and then they won't let us go past a certain amount for our poles, and then we have to maintain our spacing. And there's also like certain distances that they can maintain to support all the equipment and the wires and
Yeah,
all the
okay.
stuff that I try not to get
It's
too
an
involved
electrical
with.
design thing,
Exactly.
not a aesthetics. Okay. Anybody else? Scott?
Yeah, I guess a question I have, not so much on the poles and transformers, is just on the project itself in terms of some of the other things we spoke about last time, such as noise. You indicated you had done like a calculation of the noise and forecast what the neighbor would receive based on that mathematical equation or whatever. I just wondered, is there a facility nearby that is like this that we might be able to visit to see this, for example, this controller unit and the noise that it possibly makes, and any glare that comes off of these units that are also being spoken about?
Yeah, step up, thanks.
Yeah, we actually have a operational facility in Parma, New York. It's the first project that we built. We have some farm operations on site as well. If anyone from the board or from the town wants to come see what an operational project looks like and the type of noise that's produced, we're more than happy to accommodate that.
Okay, I would like to do that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'll reach out to the town and provide
Have to
information.
reach out to Lisa and she can help coordinate that with the board.
Wonderful.
Do we have the instruments to measure the noise levels?
Well, James is probably going to go into
So,
that in a
no,
second.
I was just gonna, the request came through from one of your guys' staff meeting from Mr. Logan here, to provide some ambient noise readings at the project site. So we're actually gonna go out this week and set up a continuous, monitor at the four kind of, direction orientations, so our north, south, east, and west that were identified in the noise study. We're gonna shift the east one a little bit south, so it's more directly in line with that resident. The other ones are already kind of effectively in line and the closest to the property based on the inverters, the things that generate noise. So we're gonna go out there and monitor each for a period, and then move to the next location. There's gonna be a representative staying with the unit, so in case any noise generating activity, somebody fires a gun, somebody's mowing, a deer runs by, hits it, there's a documentation of what that is, and then we'll basically take that data, summarize it up, and then provide it to you, and we'll have that to you next week probably, so we'd like to probably discuss that at the following meeting. And then if for some reason you guys don't think that's adequate, we can discuss, what additional noise readings or monitoring periods and things of that nature that you guys, that would help satisfy you guys.
Yeah, I think that would be good, and I think, having done noise studies myself, just as you described, I think it's also helpful if you have a similar facility for a site visit, and to just hear for myself, if you will, what noise this inverter makes, and maybe take a look at the glare aspect of things as well. I think that'd be very helpful. I mean, you've done a very good job presenting a tremendous amount of information. Don't get me wrong.
No, and I totally understand wanting to hear and see it for yourself, so yeah, I'll talk with Lisa and we'll get that information and set up a time when that would work. Other things that happened, which I can't remember if I submitted this to Lisa, and I apologize. We did get our DEC wetland letter back, so we don't have any DEC wetlands out here, which is as expected. We still have the Army Corps stuff that we're going to be dealing with. We're still looking for town engineer comments if they're coming.
Yep, those will be coming this week.
Okay, perfect.
I was talking to Mary Stebline before the meeting tonight, and she was doing her review.
Excellent. So once we get those, we'll review, we'll provide you guys written responses, and then I believe we're going to try and provide you guys updated plans that incorporate the fire marshal, additional comments, the gates and things, obviously whatever Labella has, as well as landscape screening for the resident to the east. We talked about adding in some additional plantings here to help enhance this existing buffer here and try and block some more of the gaps in those views.
Something that provides four-season screening, right, evergreen?
Yeah, evergreens, yep, and it'll be consistent with what we proposed originally there when we didn't have the 300-foot buffer and we were a little bit closer to that. Basically kind of a double row of evergreens staggering a little bit and then trying to locate them where the gaps in the views would be. Besides that, I think the only other thing on our kind of docket that we just wanted to get, if you guys fully want this, is the tree survey information. So I know when we submitted our original application, I had talked with code enforcement, and I think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding on how to interpret the code. But we did provide this exhibit, if you guys are familiar with this, basically showing what we believed are the brush areas versus the areas of the site where 6-inch and greater diameter trees are located, and then quantified that based on the areas to show how we're complying with the 10% max that's in the code. There is the other, obviously, stipulation in the code about providing a survey identifying 6-inch trees. In our mind, this satisfies it because this is the intent of it. However, if you guys want something specific, we can obviously talk about that. I did mention to Mr. Logan, it's not, I understand the wanting the information, but it's not really something that will change the amount of area of the site that we need to clear. We can't have the trees and stuff within the solar fields for screening purposes because they cause a lot of inefficiencies in the system and problems like that. So, I mean, this is effectively what we need to complete. If you're still looking for that information just for documentation purposes, we can certainly do that. Or if the concern is really just what does it look like and what is kind of the impact to really the two neighbors that have potentially some views through the existing vegetation.
Yeah, I guess what I'll do is I'll support codes in that they were looking for a count, trees 6 inches and over as a way of determining the overall impact to the site and allow the town and the public to say, well, they're taking down 50 trees, 6 inches or bigger or whatever, but it's over however many acres and
Sure.
density, and that is an element that is requested from the code. So,
Okay.
am I missing anything, Keith? Is that pretty accurate? Yeah. Okay. So,
Okay.
yeah, I would go ahead and do that. So at least we can have that count and the record.
Not a problem. If, would it be feasible, and maybe this is a question for codes, and I'm not sure, obviously, because we have an application submitted, are we allowed to do some brush hogging of the site to get rid of some of the brush to get better access through the site? Because some of the brush is so dense, even getting to some of those trees presents a little bit of a problem.
I think we should take a look at the code in that regard and also just verify with the code enforcement officer. I know with subdivision applications, I believe it's with subdivision applications, there's a provision in the code that says no pre-approval site work. So I think that's an excellent question. Let's confirm that with the code
Right.
officer.
I didn't want to go out there and
Yep.
I'm not sure that we're going to do it. Obviously, we need to kind of talk semantics on how to do the tree survey because of the limited access out there from the brush. But we wanted to kind of ask that question just to keep our options open while we try and figure that out.
There are several residents here that may or may not have a reaction to that or any other thing you're talking about. It is an open public hearing, and you're certainly welcome to comment when I open up the floor. So if you have any comments about that or other things you're hearing, you'll get that opportunity tonight and in future meetings once we get additional information from the studies, the noise, everything. So
Perfect.
go ahead and
So I think really besides that, I mean, tree survey, noise information, are there any other things that the board's looking for from us? I mean, we're happy to prepare like a draft part 2 EAF, if that would help, move things forward. Otherwise, we're looking to probably go into seeker and site plan, SUP.
I'm kind of with Scott in that it would be nice to see or important to see what the glare looks like off of those panels, and I think going to that site in Parma perhaps will also help us with that, and maybe get some photos of that one I don't know if you can relate what shows up on that site with what you'll see on this site, but if we could have a few example photos from there, a similar site.
Sure. I think we can certainly put something together for you
Yeah.
guys of
So,
existing photos or.
Joe, I'm looking at this letter on July 1st from the DEC, the judicial review. Who was going to respond to that in terms of some of the questions they raise?
well, I think James would certainly, but
Yeah, if you would like, we can certainly respond to those. I think a lot of those are, I don't think I brought a copy of the letter, unfortunately, but.
They
do you
kind
have
of hit
one?
it
Can I
with
see-
they hit it with a broad brush, and I'm uncertain as to what qualifies on this property and what
Sure.
doesn't.
Was that something that you contacted them and requested a judicial review? Is that how it goes, or is there something new here that I'm not aware of?
I'm not sure. Well, this is to Lisa, so I don't know
Yeah.
if this
So
went
what
out with
that-
the coordinated review, I'm
That
assuming?
DEC letter is in response to the lead agency coordination
Oh,
update,
okay.
the update that we sent to
Okay.
all the lead agencies.
Okay, now
And-
I get it.
Yep. And they responded, said, thank you for the updated plans. By the way, since it's been over a year since, you previously coordinated with us, here's just a refresher on,
Okay,
we
that
have.
explains it. I hadn't seen that before, and I was curious as to what prompted it coming into our meeting here.
Yeah, so I'm happy to burn through these. These are actually all pretty straightforward. So the first one, endangered species, threatened endangered species, they note that there's not any New York State ones right there. We always check the U.S. Fish and Wildlife stuff as part of our projects and reviews anyways. They have to because of funding reasons and things through the state. Article 15, protection of the waters. The stream C they're talking about, that's up in this corner. That's what we're protecting. That's been delineated. We obviously have our DEC wetland letter back I mentioned, and we're in the process of working with the Corps for their jurisdictional determinations. And then the other wetland, the little ones we believe will be isolated down at the southern end of the site, which is the next one, and the federal wetlands. The 401 water quality cert, that will be required potentially based on if the Army Corps wetlands get regulated or not. If they're isolated, then we don't have any nationwide permits, and then therefore won't have any water quality certification requirements through the DEC. If we have to do work in the, with a nationwide permit, that would require a pre-construction notification. If we trigger some disturbance thresholds under that permit, that's where the DEC comes in and issues their water quality cert. It becomes a joint permit application to those two agencies. It's very similar to working with any streams and wetlands on any other projects, just specifics of which nationwide permit we're submitting under. Floodplains, the only floodplain on our site is the little portion that clips down by the entrance and goes through some of these adjacent properties, but it's well below anything that we're developing. The only work we have in that floodplain at all is just the entrance drive, and then setting the one utility pole, I believe. Stormwater general permit, yep, that's typical SWIP and Speedy stuff. Historical, archaeological information, we have the SHPO no impact letter that was included with our original application materials. Invasive species, yes, they have best management practices of the site to basically maintain, eliminate poison ivy, doing the other kind of nuisance things as part of their regular maintenance. Stream protection notes, yes, that's why we're basically preserving this corner and kind of doing this finger to protect that, where that initial drainage just starts to form. And that is basically all of them.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It this looks like it's boilerplate pretty much, and there's a lot of you should consider, and the property may have. So I was just very curious. It seems like you have all the dots.
Sure, and what we'll do is when we get the town engineer comments, we'll provide responses and just kind of touch on each of those items in there, just so it's documented and you have something on record.
Thank you.
Anything else, Scott?
No.
Okay. Anything else for us right now? I was going to open the floor up to the public if they're
Just
interested.
if you would like any draft EAF part 2, or if that's something you guys,
so I've got one started already.
Okay.
So I don't think you guys need to duplicate the work.
sure. If you have any questions, obviously, Wes,
Sure.
reach out, please, and we're happy to coordinate.
I've got a lot of supporting information, so I'm good for the moment.
All right, I'll give everybody else a chance.
Thanks, Wes. So if anyone would like to comment, question?
James Gray, 8016 Main Street, Fishers. Couple things. Did the town already approve the rezoning?
So there's been no rezoning application as part of this project. So what has happened, and now I'm reminded that I think one of the things that I was going to do was go over the process of what's transpired in the last year. So a year and a half ago, the applicant filed an application for site plan approval for this solar project, right? And the regulations, the town's regulations at that time allowed solar projects in all portions of the town with the exception of the northwest quadrant, which is zoned limited development district, right? So anywhere else in the town, the applicant could propose a solar project. The town board initiated a moratorium on review and development of solar projects sometime in, I think it was maybe the late spring or mid-spring of 2024, put a pause on that project. And what came out of that moratorium were updated regulations that have been adopted by the town board, which tightened the location or tightened the suspenders and the belt and suspenders of where projects could be proposed. So a new zoning district was created, an overlay zoning district, right? So none of the existing zoning districts changed in the town of Victor, but an overlay district was adopted, and I can bring that up here on the computer, that identified where in the town solar projects could be permitted. That overlay district really kind of probably reduced at least by 50% the land area where solar projects could be proposed. So the town board has adopted that zoning overlay district, but there's been no change in zoning in this location or anywhere else related to solar.
You just did it a different way, right? I mean,
Well, the town
an overlay, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But the overlay that was created was
That's not
basically a
houses
more
being built.
conservative, it was a more conservative call on what was on the books to begin with.
Correct.
We had a moratorium declared, and I was part of the committee that took a look at that, and we strengthened the regulations that were already on the book. So there was any change that occurred was a much more conservative approach to controlling this than before. For example, the buffer around your residence over there, I don't believe it was 300 feet before. I think maybe it was 100. So we increased that, and we definitely took a very hard look at what was going on out here to protect the residents as much as possible. And that's the reason why I posed the question tonight, that we'd like to see a facility and understand these impacts that this project could bring to you. So we're not changing the zoning.
I see that. It's not helping. This over here, this stretch here, where they're gonna mow, that's gonna open up all view of all these panels right here to my house. I'm gonna tell you right now. You have the previous photo where you're showing the aerial, like the before with the pine trees and all that in there? Do you have my photo I sent you?
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to get that up there?
On the slideshow, but.
No, I'm just wondering, from the previous meeting I was at, there was a photo showing just a current aerial of
Current aerial.
a lot.
Wes is
It
gonna
wasn't here tonight, it wasn't on tonight's,
Wes is going to try to bring it up. Susie, maybe you can connect with his.
with that, and if you look at the photo I sent from the view of my house, there's no way 8-foot pine trees are gonna block all of this. And all this existing stuff that you're leaving, which I appreciate, your changes you made, that stuff's all like honeysuckle, you can like see right through it. It's not thick stuff. There's choke cherry trees, there's grapes killing most of the bushes off. There's dead ash trees from the emerald ash borer that killed everything, and some sapling ash trees. That's about all that's in there. It's not a great barrier. You bring up that photo or any of that stuff?
He's working on the
Okay.
aerial of the site itself right now on, I
Thank you.
think it's Google Earth, but, and we can also bring up the photo that you were, two photos that you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm ready. Is this the
Okay.
aerial that you were talking about?
No, it's.
It'll work, I mean,
Oh.
Just looking at,
no, I wanted to show you this too. This,
Okay.
from the photo I sent, you're gonna see from my house, this row of pine trees, which is about equidistant here, it's about halfway across. You're gonna open all this up, I can see people from my house walking up the mowed trail here. Okay, very easily. And you're gonna open all that up and knock it further back. That, I don't know where it went.
Oh, I was just going to bring up the other, this photo.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the view, these are the field areas, this is the row of pines we were just looking at. All this is open, there is more openness over here. This is graded upward, that goes up about 7 more feet vertically, topographically. All those panels are gonna be visible from my house. I don't know what time of the day the sun's gonna hit them, but I got 100 hours of glare already posted on my house, 40% of that being yellow. It's crazy. It's not acceptable. And I'm not really sure who's approving this. That's a lot of area. Thank you for zooming in. I mean, that's the view from the back of my house.
Is your house on a hill, like
Well,
where you were standing with this photo, were you on a
On my
hill?
deck.
You were on your deck?
Yep. We got 2 decks on the back of the house, first level and the second level. It's on the second level. It's all flat up there. You know how the lay of the land is.
I'm sorry, did you
We're
say you
we're
just,
above the road.
was this photo taken
It's off my deck.
on like
It's
a
a second
patio?
story.
Second story, okay.
Second story,
All right.
yep.
You're saying you're getting glare now?
No, she's
Oh,
just
you're-
talking
You're
about the glare.
expecting once the panels. Yes.
Then you're gonna, all this brush here is all gonna get taken out. Yeah, this stuff in here is real sparse. There's a lot of dead ash trees in there, and you're gonna cut all these down, it's gonna go way over here. And this is slightly uphill the whole way as you go that way, as you go west. It's up a grade, it's a slight grade. It's just gonna make everything more visible. 8-foot conifers planted staggered or whatever is not, unless they're 30-year-old trees, aren't gonna do anything.
The thruway above your house?
The thruway's up here,
Well,
that's north.
contour.
You would think so with all the water we get out of these fields. It's not a big slope, but there is definitely water. Yeah, I get a ton of water. When the thruway got shut down there, a couple weeks ago, I've got an 18-inch culvert that it overflowed. Couldn't believe my eyes, I just had it put in last year. It was a 12-inch, I put an 18-inch and it overdid it. Went right down my driveway. Of course, it was a fluke, but we're gonna have way too much glare on our house the way this is going right now. I'm not gonna be able to take it, to be honest with you. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
We're gonna sue. That's what we're gonna do. All parties.
I don't know, we're just too south of it. You know what I mean? Nobody gave us any consideration in any of this. I mean, I agree, put the little buffer zone in, but you're already going full blast forward with it. So, there's a serious issue here.
So here's a copy of the updated solar overlay zoning district map. And what you're seeing here is the full town. All these colors, this is the entire town of Victor. And previous to the town's most recent adoption of the solar overlay district, it was permitted to have a solar project anywhere in the town except for this upper left corner where it's dark green, right? And since the adoption of the new solar overlay district, which that limits greatly the locations of where projects can be, solar projects can be placed. One area is down here, this blue outline with that crosshatch, right? That's one area where solar projects are permitted. And then also the other blue outline, which is kind of around the Route 96, 251 overlay corridor, just that area. All other areas of the town, solar projects are now prohibited. So.
That doesn't help me, but thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Wes, where was Main Street on that one?
Main Street Fishers?
Yeah.
So-
We're just south of the thruway there.
You're right, yeah, the
And that's
project is
where-
proposed
And that's
here.
within that district, obviously.
Yep.
Okay.
Just because plans are made or things are made available doesn't make them the right idea.
Was there any other comments, at least for this meeting?
Just the other, what it's going to cost to value my property, obviously. We're the greatest affected. The Brunners are a little bit more protected than we are, but we're definitely getting Brunt further south.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. Sorry, you guys are probably sick of hearing from me, but Tracy Gray, Jake's wife, 8016 Main Street Fishers. So I listened to last meeting as you were speaking to, I think somebody off of Taylor Road about visually with a barn. You guys were so kind to the gentleman that was concerned about the neighbor building the barn. And then I just listened again tonight with the tree service that you want evervites up and a site plan, but yet it's okay for us to have 34 acres of glare in my backyard with no consideration for our family that have been there 22 years? That's okay?
I don't
I'm
think we've made that
confused.
determination yet, but we are going
Well,
to be
no, I
going
think
through
you
it.
have, because the property got sold. You've done several, studies, and you crossed off places where we couldn't have solar, but yet it's still sitting in ours. We do not know the impacts environmentally or from water. This is new technology. It hasn't been around for 100 years. No one in our neighborhood wants this, except for the one person who sold it to them. They went right ahead and bought it, so they had a pretty good feeling, because we know what it got purchased for. They had a pretty good feeling this was gonna pass. No consideration of us at all. Or our neighbors below us. This last storm that we had, we have video, we didn't even send it, of the water running off that field. It wiped out our $6,000 driveway that we are now having to, water event, but these things happen. Do I want to look? Where's the pointer? Do I want to listen to trucks coming up constantly next to my house and turning around because they've got to go to this substation or whatever this turnaround thing is? I also understand that if there is a fire, they don't put them out, they let them burn, and they stink. And the other thing is, I've got a retaining pond here that I don't want there, that's gonna sit with stagnant water up against my property. Would you like that? Would you like to smell that?
Is it a pond that's meant to be permanent?
Yes, that's what they're putting in, that's not there right now.
Is that's just for overflow, I would assume, high water
Yeah,
events, right?
It rains all, it's not gonna fill up, it's not gonna smell, where's it going?
Right. We'll certainly look at it.
You guys, I just can't even believe it's gotten this far. I'm so disappointed, because you guys do a really great job with everything else in the town, but this is bad. And our next stop is an attorney in the news. We are not dealing with this. And that's it, that's all I have to say. We're gonna keep coming, and we're gonna keep talking about this, but we're gonna start bringing other people with us. And that's it.
Thanks for your comments. Anyone else? Dave?
name's Dave Nankin from 1174 Chaucer Court. And I can't remember, I don't know if this was addressed at some time in the past, but I had a few prints that I wanted from years ago that I reframed, and one went into a room that had a lot of sun. And I put it behind like this, it's all UV protected glass, but it's also, it's like a frosted, it's glare proof, and it works real fine. I mean, can't, I don't know if it cuts down on the amount of solar collection, but couldn't, there is anti-glare glass, and can't that be incorporated into this?
It's about to be in our backyard, out in the summer. The glare, it causes radiation.
Right, but I thought this would, this is anti-glare.
Anti-glare, I don't know if it means anti-reflection or not, I'm not an
Well,
expert.
right, it does, it works pretty good, to be honest, at least in the house, where I am. But I don't know if it can be incorporated
It's a
into
good,
something.
good question, and they're welcome to step up. James, if you want to address that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can address the points. Yes, there is anti-glare coating on all the panels. It's part of the glare study. It's taken into account with that and how that modeling is done. The other couple things just to kind of note off that is just screening between properties, like in general, like you're not ever trying to screen off somebody's elevated deck or their second story window. That's not typical of developments. Obviously, I understand this is a residential to a more commercial, buffering type of thing. So obviously trees, if we planted evergreens, yes, if they planted at 8 to 10 feet, yes, they're not gonna screen from a second story deck or a second story window looking down over those until they have enough time to get to a consistent elevation or something of that nature. And then as part of the glare study, the glare that they're noting in terms of time, when they do the houses, the observation points, not the roads, because the roads are reviewed at a height of drivers and truck drivers, so regular cars and tractor trailers. The houses are observed from a normal person's height and I believe a 16-foot viewing height, so assuming that you're looking out the second story window. So when the glare is quantified in that report in terms of the amount of time total as well as the approximate time per day and when that will occur. So this is this location is to the east of us, so the glare would occur in the evening as the sun's setting and it would hit the panels and then obviously angle up. That would be that they are standing in a 16-foot viewing height and then looking at that perfect direction during that perfect time and obviously everything else going on. So it's not fully, if I'm standing in their yard, you do have to have visibility of the panels to see them. So if I'm standing at ground level and looking through brush or through 8 or 10-foot trees, it's like a fence. I can't see it. I have no view. I have no glare. And that's what a lot of the studies take into account, because a lot of the houses where any glare is identified are basically this row of houses here and then this singular house here, which is obviously their residence. But there's no views if you go out here from any of these houses to these panels. So a lot of this is all, again, it's conservatively, it's based on that National Land Cover Database for wooded areas. So none of the observation points here take into account the 40-foot tall existing evergreens that are almost between every one of these properties over here. Or it doesn't take into account the dense, or the brush and the trees here. I understand Mr. and Mrs. Gray's concerns on this side, obviously, because it's a little bit more brush, less width and things like that. But obviously, we've talked about providing additional landscape buffering, and we can cite those in some of those gaps that they're pointing out. They have the views here, and try and position them with our landscape architect to maximize their efficiencies. And if it's something, if we need to provide additional information, we can talk about other ways to kind of, support that, if that's something you guys are interested in.
And did we talk about getting maybe a section from their house through the site to kind of see how the grade goes and what elevations would be relative to their house?
Sure, yeah, we can absolutely put together like a one-to-one
Yeah, so that
profile
you can
view
see
type of
what
thing.
the,
Four seasons,
well,
not just.
that will tell me screening, that'll do, all the contours I'm talking about are looking at where the height of everything is relative to the site and your home and your deck. I think that would help us at least visualize where that glare would come in.
Sure.
From a physically vertical perspective.
Why don't you guys all take a trip up? to
I'm
my
sorry,
house?
Yeah,
I
Mrs. Gray,
cannot
I think
get
we
any of
need-
this when, I'm sorry, but when I listen to the recording, none of this will be caught for what you're saying. So if you want what you're saying on record, it would have to be at the microphone for me to capture it.
You're certainly welcome to step up, even, James will step aside, I'm sure, and
Yeah, and
allow a
kind of just
question.
echoing what they're saying, if you guys do want to visit the site, we're more than happy, you guys, we've given you permission obviously to do it. If you'd like, I'd be happy to come and tag along. We can bring up like KMC files and basically walk with the layout on a cell phone and know exactly where we are. We're at this location. Here's the views we're talking about. I'd be happy to do that for you and show you how to kind of maneuver the site.
So from our earlier, one of the earlier questions was, can they mow? And I don't think that we're talking about mowing the entire site. I think maybe a trail or a path so we can walk through there.
We can, if you guys wear some boots, we can
Second.
get around the whole site. You just gotta cut through and, like, because currently there's a trail that runs north-south and then loops around here. The whole meadow field area, you can basically traverse and get through. It's just kind of this western portion of the site, and then once you get into the brush, you gotta stay on the trail until you get to basically the perimeter of our property. If you cut through it a little bit, then you can walk along the mature trees, because the undergrowth isn't as dense.
Okay,
So,
all right, well,
I can send you guys a little
yeah,
walkway exhibit if you guys want, and like I said, I'm happy to
that would be great.
jump over there, we're
Yeah, if you
obviously
could
local,
distribute
so.
that, and I think I would like to walk the site once we get a chance to see the one in Parma.
Sure.
Get a sense of what that is, and I think Scott and Alan, Joe, you
I would
know,
walk
you
it
can
too.
yeah.
If you guys want, we can make a afternoon of it, we can go to Parma and then
Yeah,
go to the site if it works, so.
okay, we'll work with Lisa and see if we can coordinate with you guys to get a site visit up there. And then, once we get a site plan of what you're talking about, where there might be a trail that we can trek through.
Mhm.
We've done that in the past, so,
Absolutely, not a problem.
okay. Mr. Gray?
So as we're talking about the glare, as the sun traverses, it's gonna move across all those panels, if you think
Yeah,
about it.
you're
There's
gonna-
acres of it, and like I was saying back here, where he's now opening up this whole area here, all these panels are gonna be visible. It's gonna depend what time of the year, where the sun is, all that stuff. You're not gonna be able to protect our house from all that. I just can't see it happening.
Okay. Point taken, thank you.
Oh, and I've invited you to my house. You folks are welcome to come.
Okay. Anyone else with comments from the public? Okay, public hearing will still stay open. We're still going to be getting more information. Board, any other comments, what you heard, questions for the applicant?
Not at this point.
Not? Wes, any other final
Yeah,
thoughts?
well, I've got some information I want to share, just generally on glare. And I don't share this with the intent to try to be dismissive of the public's concern with glare, because I think that's something that still needs to be very carefully examined with the project, as well as all of the other environmental concerns that have been brought up to date. All of which we will take a very hard look at when we're going through the seeker process. And so just generally, solar panels generate power by absorbing light, which we know. So any light that's reflected is energy wasted. And this is from the Penn State University research page. So, and to avoid this waste, most solar panels have textured glass and anti-reflective coating that reduces the glare. Most solar panels today have less potential for glare than windows from vehicles or residential and commercial buildings. So suppose that glare, in a glare analysis finds that panels will produce significant amounts of green or yellow glare. You mentioned the yellow glare, and I think that's in the study for your property. And in that case, developers, they can adjust the placement of the panel's angles to address the issue, require that the developer perform or provide landscape screening, that sort of thing. And this is just a little bit of general information that I thought might be worth at least giving consideration tonight. And we'll dig into this a little bit more so that you've got a accurate idea of what the project's impacts are gonna be on the neighbor's property and in the community, so.
Is there I'm sorry, I'll give you a chance a second. Maybe this is for you, James. Is there something that would, if you took the proximity or the location on the Grace, at the Grace house, is there like a cone of where the glare would come from during the year that would, then you could use that to track where you would put trees and things for screening?
Yeah, so this glare study itself identifies when the glare is anticipated. So I believe for the residents to the west, it's in the PM evening time. Obviously, it's going to vary
Sure.
when the sun's setting, when that occurs. And it would occur, I think it was between March and September, I think was for that location.
Well, glare
But
would it be
basically, it takes into
year-round?
account the tracking of the sun, the position of the sun and relative to the site and GIS and how
Yeah.
everything's analyzed. And it's basically, that's what they're trying to figure out, is when the sun is at this angle, if it hits that panel and then reflects at the angle of, I can't remember from school at this point, but whatever the reflection angle is.
That's it.
And then it hits that 16-foot observation point, and that's what they're looking at. If you look at it as a 6-foot observation, like I'm standing in the yard or standing on like a at-ground patio, it's going to be a lot different of a result because the angle, it just doesn't happen as
I mean, there's
many
a-
hours of the day.
There's a
or many
southerly,
minutes.
there's a most southerly location of the sun, and there's a most northerly location of a sun with the angles.
Correct. And so that's
There's a cone there.
modeled through a whole software that
Yeah.
I'm not super in depth with. I obviously just, we're
Okay.
sending that out to a consultant and getting that back and then just reviewing the data to understand it. But yeah, in theory, the sun angle is taken into account throughout the entire course of the year, and that's how they identify there's glare potential at these locations, again, assuming you have actual view of this and there's no vegetation or other things interfering with that.
I mean, as I see it, the Grace House is the most affected from glare of
Sure.
any property in the whole
100%.
area.
We're not trying to
Really.
deny that at all. Like, I mean, I would argue that maybe the only other house that may have any potential is this one, and it would be through that 300-foot vegetated buffer if you hit the right view. Now, obviously, if you're in their second-story window at 16-foot height and looking down and standing there all evening looking out, there may be a period where, yeah, that sun hits that angle at the right time, and then if there's no vegetation proposed screening that hasn't grown up to be tall enough to interfere with that, then yes. But it would be yellow or green glare, short in duration and temporary, obviously.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Sir, I'm sorry. Got a little, sidetracked here, but go ahead.
Problem. Robert Brostek, 7971 Mountain Hill Road. You talk about vegetation, go down number 6 road in Honey Eye Falls, cross over 15 on the right-hand side. They put in, a year and a half ago, they put in all those pine trees. Half of them are dead. Nobody's replaced them. Nobody cares. They just wash their hands of it. It is what it is.
Now, is that screening a solar farm or something else?
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
all right.
Yes, it is.
I've been down the road many times. I don't recall seeing a solar farm, so I'll take a look at it next time.
You'll
I
cross
go.
over the intersection,
Yep.
there's that camper, whatever, on your right-hand side. Look up, you'll see all the big transformers, and then the driveway
Oh.
going back.
Those I've seen, yeah.
Yep. Look at all the pine trees that are dead. Nobody's replaced them.
So I would expect there would be that codes would have something to say about trees, maintaining them. If there was one that died, or more than one, or all of them, you'd have to maintain those. So
For how long,
as long as they have the property, I would assume, because that's a feature that needs to be in place to protect the residents that they were planted for.
Mhm.
So,
And I have worked at about 3 solar farms in the past year. They are very loud. You have backup alarms that are 90 decibels, backup, beep, 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 all the time. The pounders, pounding the steel posts into the ground.
that's construction, yep.
Yep, it's construction, so it's loud.
I would expect, as a working field, what kind of truck traffic have you experienced?
It's ridiculous, the trucks in and out. It seems like these companies, it's like everybody has the buddy system. They got to ride around with their buddy. And you watch them. They go to the office, they come back. And then 20 minutes later, they're pulling out of the field, and they're just back and forth, just like they're riding around all day.
This is while the farm is an active solar farm after construction.
Nope, it's during construction.
Well, that I understand.
During construction. I have been to the other farms where they're doing maintenance, and you're still hearing the trucks and everything else, but what happens in 15 years when something happens to them? Are they just gonna go and get rid of the LLC and be like, "Oh, not my problem"? And now you got an environmental hazard on your hands?
I believe the decommissioning of a solar farm requires removal.
And we have them post a bond, I believe, to cover the cost of that.
Okay, so Scott's the one most knowledgeable with that requirements. So I appreciate your comments.
All right.
Certainly we'll be considering everything in our review.
Thank you.
So, okay.
The only other thing I'd mention is if you're gonna go out to look at this other farm,
Yes, go ahead.
do it while it's sunny, because it's the only way you're gonna hear the
Oh, yeah.
inverters.
I'm not going to do it while
'Cause
it's
if you
like,
go-
it was today. It was very
Yeah, that's what I'm
overcast.
saying, just so you get a fair feel
Nope,
for it.
appreciate that. So, any other thoughts, Wes, from you? You're diligently going through aerials here, but, nope. Okay. Al,
Well, I'm all set for tonight.
Pat?
I'm fine.
I think we're all set. So, thanks again, gentlemen. I appreciate all the public's comments, and we certainly take them into account. So, anything else, Lisa? Okay. Entertain motion to adjourn.
I'll move it.
Scott moves, Al seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
This wasn't kidding.
Have a good
So
week,
what
everyone.
happened to the project that was on,
8:30.
is it County Road 9 in Aldridge there, the one with that big wetland?